Thank you.
Oh, there he is. He probably was down working in Oak. Oh, you snuck out of here.
Is Lisa still on Zoom?
Thought you snuck out. I know, just working like a.
So Councilmember Thorson left,
Yeah, he left.
so,
Councilmember Wong is still online.
and she's still online, okay. All right, turn it over to City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next topic up is the employee health insurance update. Additional information requested from the council back on November 1st, 2022, and Dan has that information for us. Finance Director, Mr. Winnick.
Welcome, Dan.
Mayor, council members, thank you very much.
Now, we're gonna keep it limited, so you don't
I
have to.
I am very limited today.
Okay, all right.
No posting, no projects. This is, no, first of all, I want to start this item out. I mean, I'm going to give you an update of some information that you had requested, which we should have had at the last workshop. But the first thing that I want to say is that I want to apologize to the city council that I brought this item forward, because it puts you in a tough spot. And I absolutely realize that. But on the flip side, there's an opportunity here. And we heard from the police chief talking about health insurance. And here's an opportunity, which I view as a low-cost opportunity to show the support of city council, not only for the police force, but keep the equity amongst all of our employees across, I believe there's 5 unions. And so I did go out and I sent an email to all the cities in Ramsey County and asking them for information regarding their health insurance. So the questions that I asked is for single family, or if they offered other types of insurances, what was the employee paying? What was the city's contribution? And then obviously you can come up with what the total premium was. At the time that I published this, I think 6 cities had responded. I've now received a couple of other ones that have responded back to me. The interesting component to it, that we can draw some conclusions with the backup that has been provided, that one, our city is contributing on the high side. So of those who responded, and when I talk about contribution, I talk about the contribution to both, whether it's the health insurance, whether it's a single or family, the city's contribution towards the premium itself, and then the HSA dollars that the city's contributing to employees. And so when I look at that on an average basis, the average came to about a little over $1,600, and the city's contributing now, because of this 50% increase on the PEEP insurance, to about $1,750. So I agree, the city is contributing more than the average share. But there's a different way of looking at this. And the way to look at this is, what is the impact to our employees? And that's kind of the key component to it, because that's what really matters when it comes down to the attraction and the retention of employees. And what makes this city extraordinary is the city council and all of the staff members that are here. And again, I started here 16 months ago, and I'll say it 16 months later, I have never met an organization that is so supported by its leadership. And in addition, I've never seen the dedication and the professionalism and the level of customer service that is done here in this city. And so to maintain that, if we were to look at it from the cost from an employee's perspective, The costs for single coverage, the majority of cities that responded basically cover all cost for single coverage. So we don't have that. We have employees pay 10%. So the average that came out was actually $11.72 is what employees cost, not including the city of North St. Paul, the other 6. We are at $72.69. So there's a delta of approximately $61. If we look at the family coverage, again, the cost for our employee is higher than the average. The average is approximately $329 or $330, rounding it, and our employees pay approximately $387. Again, they're paying approximately $57 higher than the average. The average meaning that's kind of our competition when it comes into the public sector for employees. So what I did was I looked at it and said, okay, we have 25 single that have single coverage, 22 employees that have family coverage. If I were to say, let's at least meet the average, it would come to an additional contribution to the city of approximately $33,000. If you remember that scale that I had given out last time, approximately every $5,200 reduced the, if the city were to contribute an additional $5,200, it would reduce approximately 5%, or it would reduce 5% for the employees' cost. So this $33,000 would bring it at the end of it that the city would contribute an additional $33,000, and it would reduce the increase for the employee costs from the 50% to the 20%. And if you remember, I gave ranges going from the 50 all the way to 15%. We had, after the last workshop, we had another insurance committee. I had shared the information that I had publicly posted for city council, and the first part of the meeting was to have them look at the options that were given to us from Gallagher for different insurance options. And unanimously, the insurance committee voted to stay with PEEP, even though it's a 50%. Because if you can remember, there was a couple of other lower options, but then the deductibles were considerably higher. So they decided to stay with PEEP. Before I had presented the handout that had that 5% and 50%, I kind of asked the group what they had thought about everything. They had asked what had transpired last night. I said, we had some really tough questions, and that there was a really good question that the city council wanted additional information, and I said to them, and I totally agree, that we need to give them that additional information, which is being presented tonight. You know, they were, I had one, and it's a representative of our police department, was very concerned that 50% increase to the employees would create the possibility of losing up to 4 more additional police officers. I was kind of stunned by the comment, and so I'm sharing the information. Then we kind of went around and kind of asked others, and again, I think I had told you last workshop that we had an employee who recently started, and part of the reason why that individual started here was because of the benefits, and then all of a sudden, within 3 months of employment, you know, insurance is going to go up, their premium is going to go up 50%. So they kind of, you know, re-talked about that component to it. And I said, well, I'm gonna, you know, I had sent out, at that point in time, I think I'd only received 1 or 2 cities, so I didn't share any of that information, but told them that I had sent out a request for from cities in the Ramsey County to provide insurance information so I could get that information to city council. I also want to share a personal experience that I have had in the hiring process. I was hiring for a manager's position. The individual is actually a consultant that we had used. And how our contract was with that, that company and for that individual was totally transparent. So I could see what they paid that individual per hour. I could see what they paid for insurance and all that type of stuff. Didn't know what that employee's cost was, but I could see what we were paying for. Very transparent contract. Had made the decision that we wanted to hire this person on, or at least try to hire this person on as a permanent employee. So we ran the process, went through the hiring, and this person indeed was the top candidate. So it came to negotiating the salary for the individual. And it was kind of interesting. I knew what they were making. So I offered them a couple of steps higher than where they were at. And then I told them all the positive pieces about, oh, what a great health insurance program we have. Very low deductibles, da-da-da-da-da, going through that. Hey, you're now going to be joining into the PERA pension. They didn't have a pension plan. Wow, look at all these positives. I said, so I wrote it all up, went through it with him face to face, handed it over to him, and he says, I can't accept it. And I thought, what do you mean you can't accept it? The reason why they couldn't accept it is because the insurance that they were getting, both of those two positive pieces that I thought, the insurance that they were receiving from their company, they had the option to go to a much higher deductible, which resulted in lower premiums for them to pay. And I kind of thought, okay. And I knew this individual had young children. I thought, wow, for me, I'm a very conservative person. I wouldn't have taken that risk. I said, okay, well, but how about the pension that you're getting? Again, I don't have an option to that pension. I have to contribute. And so at the end of the day, what they were concerned about, and this came out, is I need to take home the same amount of money that I have in my current job into the future, even though there were, to me, better benefits. And so I am recommending that for a small cost, and I look at it as a small cost compared to, I think, the benefit and the goodwill that it gives to our existing customers, and it helps us attract and retain employees, that the city seriously considers contributing additional amount for the 2023 year, and only the 2023 year. And also that the city council directs staff to work with that insurance committee and also with Gallagher Insurance to come up with other options to lower the cost, not only for our employees, but for the city. And I think we have to look at it from the standpoint of where the employees were before this point in time. And both the city and the employees have faced the same thing, a ridiculously high increase of 50%. So with that, I'll answer any questions. I know this is a tough decision, but you know, I heard what the police chief said today. I kind of like the comment that Councilmember Thorson had said about having multiple unions. You start to set one union different than the other. It sometimes backfires on you, or you end up having those same costs. So to me, I'm looking at this as being something that's equitable across for all of our employees. Questions?
Just coming to mind, again, it goes back to my comments at the last meeting was, are we paying our employees the way we should be? Are they getting, is their health package a good deal? And it sounds like it is a good deal, based on comparables to other cities.
The city's contribution to the premium, yes. From the employee's cost perspective, no. We're below the average of the responding cities
Employees' cost is also a function of income. So if it's a percentage of income is what they're paying, their contribution dollars that they're paying would be higher based on income. I'm sorry, Mayor, I stepped in. My
Nope,
apologies.
nope,
Please go ahead.
Nope, no, go ahead.
If I heard you correctly, the percentage contribution made by the city is greater than that of the other cities as a percentage of pay. Did I hear you?
No, not of pay. Paid wasn't included in the survey component to it. It was just asked the questions of what was the cost for the employee for, health insurance, and what was the city's contribution for that.
That goes back to, we have 3-year binding contracts, and it's at 10 and 20%. And again, this is a challenging conversation, and I
It is.
haven't made any decisions because what you're asking of us impacts several people that are currently in this room. So it makes it real tough to have an open dialogue, but that's where we are.
Right.
We pay the city's contract with the unions is at 90% for singles and 80% for married with family.
Correct.
Did you get did you get percentage numbers back from the communities that you surveyed?
I did not get percentages from that.
So
From s-
to talk
from-
raw
from s-
dollars is
from-
not
from-
is not a fair analogy, in my opinion, because income is based off of that. So do you know, is the salaries paid for the city greater than that or less than that of the other cities that you surveyed?
So first of all, to answer the question about percentages, if you look on the data, you're going to see in the single coverage that, I did put percentages there. I calculated them because it's pretty easy. If you've got what the city's contribution and the cost, you can come up with what their percentage. So again, on singles, you're going to see, the average percentage of city contribution for single was 98.27%. We're at 90.
Okay.
So clearly, if our 90 is much, is lower than that. We're very comparable and actually a little bit higher on the family. The overall percentage was 76.69%, we're at 80. So that, you can do the calculation, which I did put on the spreadsheet for that. So I didn't really feel I needed to ask them that question because it's a mathematical function.
So we're in the ballpark with what else is out there from a percentage standpoint.
More on the family and not on the single, correct.
So, go ahead, Mayor, I've stepped in. I'll step back before I
was
cover off the rest of my
Gonna
questions.
Jump in it.
Please,
because
no,
it's-
please.
we're-
I apologize, I interrupted you.
No, so I'm just thinking, if we did not have this increase, or I should say it, if we were paying what we should have been paying last year, market-wise, it sounded like the rate that we're paying for the insurance was way below what market was.
Correct. That's what Gallagher had.
So if we were actually paying market last year, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Absolutely, and that's really the reason for the discussion. The discussion is because it's a 50% increase.
Correct.
Yeah,
But we were getting a good-
absolutely.
But we were getting a good deal,
Yes,
a very good deal,
I believe so, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and it
So
really,
here's where I struggle with, is we're getting a great deal. Our employees were getting, their net pay was more because their insurance, we're paying less than what the insurance, the 90%, the 80%. If they were at market a year ago, what we should have been paying, again, we wouldn't be having this discussion because that's our policy, is 90%.
right, I don't disagree with that. So, and part of my recommendation that I said is that for 2023 and only for 2023. And here's the reason, to be able to try to ratchet it up instead of just boom, it's a 50% increase to the employee cost. Again,
And we're
Again-
talking, what, 20, what do we say, $21?
$24, I believe, for single and $124, $126 for family.
on a monthly basis, yeah, I think that was about it, right?
I just looked at, those are my notes from
Yep, I think
I'm sure
you're-
they
yep.
moved around, but.
No, I think you're absolutely right, yeah.
And I still believe the police department, we need to figure that out. because that is where we're having, you know, you mentioned that we may lose 4 more police officers if we don't do this.
That's a comment that came. I'm just sharing the information that came from,
That's what I'm hearing.
that's what I
So-
had heard, and that's why I
And
had to share it.
You know, from what I heard from the workshop with the chief, is we do have a problem there. We need to figure that out. I don't know about the rest of the city, you know, if they're experiencing the same burnout that the police department is having. But I'm more concerned about our police department. I hate to say that. I shouldn't say I'm more concerned, but I think the need is more at the police department right now in regards to retention and trying to figure out how do we keep those employees. That's my only.
Tend to agree with that, Your Honor. You know, it hits us at a bad spot. I mean, you can't prevent it, and, you know, here we are making this decision, and it's money. I wish in a wishful world that all the employees will just be healthy and there'll be no, you know, complaints and whatever, but, or, you know, illnesses, but, you know, that's in a perfect world. But I tend to agree with the mayor on this one. I don't think we're, you know, out of bounds, you know. The 50% is an ouch, but it is what it is, and that's all I have to say.
Lisa Wong?
I can understand that there is a financial concern. And I also can see the value as well, not to say that the value in the sense that we are still coming out of a pandemic. And I think if it's just for 1 year, could this be something that we explore in terms of retention or creating a really wonderful workplace? Just food for thought. I mean, it's just 1 year.
You know, and that's really how I'm looking at it too. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. You know, and again, I apologize. I know this is tough to bring up. But again, like I said before, I think as the finance director for the city of North St. Paul, I think I play part of it looking at it from an organizational standpoint and looking at the impacts that it has on our employees as well as the financial condition and situation for the city of North St. Paul and the impact that it has on the residents. And so it's a tough balancing act at many times. I just don't want to see some unintended consequences happening in losing some employees. Mayor, I absolutely agree. I think right now our biggest focus really is on the police department. But I don't want to create an inequitable situation in which we have amongst our employees. I don't want to see where we start to create, you know, any type of friction. The city works and runs very well. The communication is excellent across all departments. It is really a team environment. And I don't want to see that being jeopardized. And so, again, part of bringing this forward is for awareness. And to me, I've been fortunate in this position because I know the city council allows having open dialogues and fair, and it's a tough decision for you to make, and any other information that you need would be, you know, greatly appreciated that, you know, I can go out and find. But again, I look at it as it's a 1 year thing. It really comes because it's a 50% increase. And I think if we can try to ease that pain a little bit, I think it goes a long way. It really shows support from city council to all the employees. We got a year to figure this out. I do not intend for the city, from my other side of my role, that the city is going to pay their contributions as being as high as it is, because it is above the average. But for a one-year term, I can agree with it because I believe that there's great benefit. But that's my opinion.
And I still look at, the market. What is the market doing? We were getting a good deal. We were getting a great deal. We're 50% off. If there's a 50% increase, we were getting a good deal last year. If we didn't have that great deal, we wouldn't be having this.
I absolutely agree with you, but then that gives that much more of an indication of why I brought this forward, because of that being a good deal and now hitting market, it's created a 50% increase for the employees. If this were a 20% increase, a 15% increase, I wouldn't have brought this forward. It's because it's 50. I think 50% increase is a substantial increase. It hit the city hard. So that's the reason why it was brought forward. But that market situation is what created that 50%. And on the flip side, when you look at it and say, okay, well, the employees, had a better deal in the past. Well, so did the city. And it's kind of hard to explain to an employee that, hey, you had a great deal and you should have saved up some of that money because now you're going to spend more. They kind of look at it from where they're at today from, full economic perspective. But I mean, if that's the will of the city council, I'm not going to have an argument with that.
Councilmember Cole?
Yeah, I guess I do have a couple more comments or questions, Dan.
And I won't interrupt you.
No, I interrupted you, so you had started your comments out tonight by saying this is a wonderful way for the council to show their support for staff. And while I hear you loud and clear, I certainly hope that this is not a litmus test for what staff views as council support.
I don't believe so. When I left and Jenny was there, my last comments were, I put the city council, and that's why I apologize, I put the city council in a very bad position. It has no reflection on their support for the employees. And matter of fact, I had one of the members there echoed that right after I got done saying that part to it. And I said, if it were me being thrown this to me, number one, I got a contract in place that talks about 90 to 80%. I could have ended the conversation right then and there. So the answer to that is I absolutely do not believe that in any way, shape, or form. If my comment there was in bad choice of words, I apologize for that, but that was not the intent. I was looking at it more from the standpoint that because this committee has been very vocal on trying to get their impact of their cost lower, that it's an opportunity, plain and simple.
And thank you for recognizing the fact. I think this council is very open, and I think dialogue is fantastic.
I do.
The piece that, as I sit here and I look at, is yes, it's a 50% increase to staff, and we talked about what the actual dollar implications look like. The number I'm recalling from the last workshop we had was by helping offset this, I think it was a $37,000 expense to the city. And is that number, am I close?
If it would have gone down to the 15%, yeah, it would have been an additional 37,000. Yes, correct.
And I look at that as we also represent all of the residents.
Absolutely.
As well as staff.
Absolutely.
And we haven't finalized the budget for next year. And taking that 37,000 into what it would cost, that's about a 0.7, 0.8% increase in the levy that we're looking to have passed. I mean, so there's, even if it's for 1 year, there's a direct correlation onto the residents. And that's the piece I keep weighing back and forth, Dan. I completely hear you, that it's 1 year and what it truly does mean to staff. But I've also got to put on the other shoes and think of the rest of the residents and how they would feel. Because their insurance probably went up, their property on their houses are gonna go up because of the hailstorm that was had. That had nothing to do with them. Again, I've gotta weigh both sides. I think I'm done now.
Thank you. So I don't think we need any more information unless you think there's more information out there that you can get that would,
No, I don't. I think the city council has spoke very clear and, you know, I think that's the end of the discussion on that topic.
So do we bring it up? I mean, it's been brought up. We want to, I'm assuming, of the assumption that we want a type of a vote?
well, we can't vote today.
No, I
We're-
recognize that.
Well,
but-
we're probably gonna give staff, Brian, direction in regards to, do you want to bring this up to the council? We're gonna have that same discussion then, and we would vote on it, on, whether or not, maybe there is increment in there that we could, maybe it's not the 50%, maybe it's not the, you're looking for what, 15? Well, you don't know. We don't know what that range is.
Based upon the averages of what the other cities responded, it would be at the 20.
The 20%. So, I don't know, is the council comfortable with a 0 to 20%, increments in there, 5% increments or whatever, to 20, or is it 0 or 20%?
Well, it would go from, if it's not 20, would it be 25, 30, 35, 45, 50? It would go, leaving
Oh,
it
the
where it's
low
at.
end, the low end would be the
Auctioneer.
20.
Auctioneer.
Sound like an auctioneer.
What do you feel? Future council, what do you feel now? Just kidding.
I mean, we're not being asked to
No, we're,
give
No.
anything tonight, so.
no, but we need to give direction, because we only got 2 meetings left, or only the 1 meeting, because we would have to approve it at the next meeting
Correct.
as part of the budget.
I mean, I would say bring a proposal together, and I'll weigh my opinion at the time the proposal's brought.
Let's do this. Let's have Dan and Brian work on something, knowing how we feel.
Oh, that's tough.
Well, to be honest with you, it puts it in your court.
Sure.
You know how we feel. It might not be a 0, but maybe there's something a little less. But I still think we need to really look at the police department, because that is really affecting our, the hirees over on that side, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it would be kind of interesting just to, survey specifically for police officers to see what cities are doing, just for the police officers too, and get a little bit more data on that.
But I think having that committee, what I brought up at the,
I think that's great, yeah, I think
think
that's,
that'd
it was a great suggestion, yeah.
kind
Yep.
of good.
Yep.
All right. Beat that up pretty good. So we got one more item, and that's the fee schedule. And I'll turn over to Finance Director Dan Winnick.
I actually want to pull it up so we can go through the different changes here. So, Mayor, council members, This part of the workshop is on the 2023 municipal fee schedule and utility rate schedule. The city council establishes a fee and rate schedule for the various permits, licenses, and services provided by the city of North St. Paul. Annually, city staff reviews the city fees and charges for services and makes recommendations for adjustments as necessary. It is proposed to adopt the fee schedule and utility rate schedule with increases at the December 6, 2022 city council meeting. This is for discussion to kind of go through, and let me try to get this.
You know what, I wanted, Councilmember Wong, if I can go back real quick. Carrie, is there a possibility I can get her opinion?
Hello.
You sound terrible. Hope you're feeling better. I don't know if you heard the discussion, Lisa, but we're looking at bringing it back to Brian and have Brian and Dan kind of work out a little plan in regards to our feedback. Are you there?
Can you repeat that?
So we're bringing it back to Brian and Dan. The feedback that we had to Dan was still concerning to him in regards to the 20%.
Yeah.
You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Go back to sleep.
No, don't go back.
Thank
to
you,
sleep.
thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, she usually has some very good comments and catches things on the municipal fee schedule and utility rates. So this document is tracking all of the changes from the 22 municipal fee, and I'll kind of walk through that. The first couple of pages really, there aren't any changes. We've added body art enterprise into the massage enterprise category. Animal fees, nothing has changed on that page. There's been the community development section made some changes in some cleaning up on the electrical permit component. They had conversations with the current inspector and modified some of the rates that you will see here in the electric permit, and then changed the whole commercial electric fee schedule to kind of spell it out a little bit more for residents, so they're fully aware of what those fees should be and how they're calculated. I do believe the rest of the building permits, there were no other changes on building permitting kind of components to it. There is a change here on page 5 or page 18 of 42 of the documents, but page 5 of this document, and I'll use what this document number is. The sewer hookup and the water hookup are being changed and changed significantly. Both were at 150. The sewer hookup is moving to 550 and the water hookup is moving to 800. That's a suggestion that came from our Public Works Department based upon surveying of other cities and taking the low end of what those cities are charging for sewer and water hookup. Again, there's on page 6, you'll see some cleanup. And again, on page 7, the item that was on the very bottom, the cell tower permit has been moved to page 17, which fits better underneath the miscellaneous fees. Again, a cleanup item, nothing was added. On page 8, there's 2 items that have been dropped. They were duplicate permit card fees, and they can be printed from the website, so there's no need to have a fee associated with those. And then on page 11 is where the body art enterprises were added to the section 113.02 for massage enterprise, and then clarification that both the new and the renewal are not per employee, they're per enterprise. And then the insurance required workers' compensation was added to that section for the minimum liability coverage. Again, the insurance was added on page 12 in that note that's on the bottom there too. Brings us next changes on page 13 for other electric charges. I believe it started back at about somewhere close to the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. The city suspended reconnection charges, late payments, and we're looking at bringing those back in the first of the year. So we looked at some of those charges, and what was the reconnection charge was at $50. We're reducing it to $25. We did a survey of a number of cities around and trying to get some information regarding some of these costs. So, I think at 50 was more when actually somebody from the electrical department actually had to go out to reconnect. Now it's all done electronically, so we reduced the cost for that. There is, at the very end, there is, for the late payment charge, I put a note. I did not see it when I was going through this document. It'll end up going into this section. The next is the utility late payment charge. It's been 10% of the balance due. We're making the recommendation that that gets reduced to 5% of the balance due. That's more in line with what we found from other cities. And I believe that brings the next changes on page 17, where that one item that I showed on page 7 got moved underneath the miscellaneous fees, the cell tower permit fee of $12.50. That isn't a new fee, that just was moved, kind of a cleanup item. We have a very wonderful citizen who goes through our workshop items and sent me an email, wanted some questions of clarification. And so the item of open air park shelters, what I have gathered is that the intention of changing this from a per day to a half a day was from the Park Commission in trying to come up with a lower cost option for residents. So it was a split, having AM and PM. There really needs to be a definition of what is AM and what is PM. And so there will be added into those sections that AM will be defined as 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. and the PM will be defined as 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. There also has to be a note that there will be no cleanup provided by the city between the AM and the PM, because that would require public works staff to come in and do that. They do it in the morning, even on the weekends, but would not be able to do that in the afternoon.
Does that come from a recommendation from the Park and Rec?
Yes, according to staff, yep.
A way to lower fees and increase usage.
And then the other part to it is that those fees are all cut in half, and they were not reflected here on this document, so that needs to be changed. So the 50 would be 25, the 65 would be 32 and a half, and the deposit would be down to 25. So those changes need to happen in that. And I believe the removal of housing out of that section too needs to occur from one of our residents who talked, because the open shelter really is, I think, is included as part of the whole park building rental. That was my understanding from conversation with other staff. So that still needs a little bit of clarification onto that, but those other changes will end up being incorporated into this document. And then the ball field rental, Public Works has made the suggestion that if there's a, like a tournament going on and there needs to be midday maintenance, that there's a $300 charge for that. And then there's an increase in the softball tournament per field per day from $125 to $150.
So the house, just going back to the housing park, is there a way to do the facility plus the shelter as one? And then if you just need the shelter, that opens up?
It's
Does
left,
that makes,
great question. It's left to interpretation. As we talk through it, yes, that was why there was a shelter fee if you didn't want to rent the pavilion. And I guess I'll probably need clarity or have someone provide clarity around if you rented the pavilion, you got the shelter. I
so
don't,
that should be pavilion plus shelter
correct,
with an amount.
correct. But then if you want to just use the shelter,
That
how
would
then do
open
we
up,
how do you handle that?
would open up the other piece. Either you're getting both, or you're getting one or the other.
But if a resident would come in and want to rent the open-air shelter on a specific date prior to somebody renting the pavilion, is the pavilion no longer available for, so it's one flat fee, you rent one, you get both. You don't, is that what you're suggesting?
No, I'm saying separate the two.
And that's the way I think, well, that's the way I understood it to be today, but it sounds like there's, it's not clear.
I believe tomorrow night you have a park, and staff will get clarification to find out on that. That's, yeah.
Much better.
I was just bringing it up that there's some confusion with that, but there'll be clarification tomorrow night on how that's going to change. But that potentially could be a change that's going to come on here for the 6th when we finalize this. And then there's been some discussion, and I know that city council had discussion about this in the past, and so it's just kind of a question of whether there needs to be further discussion or reaffirmation. For ball field rental, there seems to be, I think, no charge for nonprofits versus profits being charged, even though the fee schedule does not indicate any of that. I think that's been the practice that's happening for some reason. So I think we need clarification on that too.
Yeah, everybody's looking at me.
I don't remember nonprofits not being charged, but from,
Carrie's nodding her head and back,
what's that?
but,
It is a policy? Has been?
but how did we define nonprofit? And then wasn't it a nonprofit within the city? It was so, pick a random community, they could come and have our ball fields for free?
When did that happen? So,
I thought it was defined as nonprofit within the city. So that allows churches, schools, whoever wants to utilize the ball field for an outing. North St. Paul Athletic Association. But I didn't realize
did
that.
it just happen once, or?
I mean, it's of my opinion that it goes back to being limited to North St. Paul nonprofits. But I'm only of one opinion sitting up here.
Well, you got the meeting tomorrow, so.
We've got the
Why don't you-
meeting tomorrow to look, to gain clarity. Because I know there's a couple things going on with rental property, with whether it be ball fields or Casey Lake. So, yeah. That's, I mean, what do you guys think? What's the general consensus?
I don't remember the nonprofits getting, was that me that did it? No. You're looking at me like, you're the guy that did it. I went, no, I don't think it was me.
I vaguely remember the conversation.
I mean, I could see a discount for maybe a nonprofit, that's a possibility, but what do you think, Carrie? I mean, you're. Yeah. So I would say bring it back to the Park and Rec. You guys talk about it tomorrow night with the, I think, we should have some sort of fee, whether it's a discounted fee or,
For resident and for nonprofits within the city or just across
across the board.
the board?
Make it simpler. Because you're always going to get that nonprofit that will piggyback onto another nonprofit that's in the city. You have a list.
I have a list. Brian, I hope you're taking notes for Jill as well.
Sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
Oh, no, this is great.
Thank you.
No, these are, as staff puts this together, then there's questions that come up. So no, this is actually good clarification. I believe the next change that we'll have will be on page 21, police department fees. You'll see the first one underneath photographs. They used to charge it for CD and DVD. They no longer do that. So if it's a hard, paper single copy, it's $5. So that got changed there. You can see report copies. They really don't do transcription. It's really covered underneath the clerical per hour. The police officer is based upon looking at the 2023 cost for the police force and come up with an hourly rate and then add an amount for the squad car rental and the squad car, because you're not going to have a squad without an officer. So that's been eliminated there. And then you can see the photographs is now done on a thumb drive that would cost $20. And you can see there's a 911 audio instead of a transcription. So it got reduced from $50 to $20. And then the next changes are on page 23 with public works fees, meter charges, and virtually all of the meter charges have increased. Those are the actual costs plus 3%, anticipating what they would be in 2023 per our public works department. And then we have the utility rates coming up next. If you remember last workshop, we had a discussion. We were, based upon the financial plans, we were looking at doing a 2.75% increase in wastewater. And at that point in time, City Manager Frandl had mentioned that Electric was looking at one point in time, it talked about a 5% increase, that it was going to be hopefully heading down towards 3%. We were, from the financial plan, we probably could absorb, somewhere in the range of about a 2 to 3% to 2.5% increase in the cost. City Council kind of gave the direction that we would change that, those rates up 1.5%. We have learned that it will not be reduced from the 5%, that there will be a 5% increase. So these rates are now reflective of a 2.75% increase. So we were able to absorb underneath the current rate 2.25% of that increase, but we will have to pass 2.75% onto the rate.
I think, City Manager, you're anxious to clarify that.
That's on a wholesale level, so we can cover those costs at the retail level with 2.75.
So all of those rates on page 24 have been increased 2.75%. There will be no changes in our garbage rates. No changes in our surface water rates. Our wastewater rates, again, the suggestion was increasing 2.75%. Those have been increased. I did throw an attachment here of what the proposed changes from Maplewood are, but that will not be finalized. I think it gets finalized by their city council on November 21st. And I believe that was all the changes. And then on page 28 was that I had added a note for penalty of overdue outstanding utility balances, but that can be removed because it's actually incorporated into the charges that was previous, where I had discussed that we will be reducing it from a 10% penalty to a 5%.
We had talked about a data request fee a few years ago, and we did not put that in place. I'd like to find out, what is the amount of time for data requests? Do we have a lot of them? Is it, are we able to charge a data request fee? And I don't know what that looks like. I know we can't charge more than what, the data request is actually, you're being required,
So
but
any data that's public can be requested for investigation for free, and then when you get into like the copies and the amount of copies and stuff, that's when prices start, that's when you can actually start charging.
do you know if other cities are doing that, or any idea?
Yes, and typically it's just done through the statute. I don't know if I've seen too many that have it in the fee schedule. It's good for clarity though, but
Because we don't charge anything right now, do we?
I don't believe so, but underneath our miscellaneous fee section, there is a copy fee rate. So for a black and white per page is 25 cents.
my spidey senses told me that Carrie said it's all digital. So then, no, there would be,
So then there would
if the information's already public, the public is entitled to that
Yes.
without cost.
So we cannot charge
No,
At a
but I'll
request.
put in it depends on,
if there's hard copies that are
if
being,
there's something else that were to come up that, because there's only a few things that you can charge for under the state statute.
okay.
Well, I guess I can definitely make sure that I'm giving you guys the right information on that, but my understanding is no, if it's public, they're entitled to that information. But you're right, I mean, there must be a limiting principle, so I'll let you know.
Okay. Any questions?
No, just for your awareness, we will end up probably sometime early part of next year having a discussion on, currently right now, the city pays all credit card fees. And so that'll be a discussion that'll be posed to city council in a workshop forum.
Good luck.
to see if that's something that we want to do. In the meantime, I have come up with a different option to reduce our costs. And so we're going to pursue moving in that direction. Part of it is our card readers that we currently are using are really not in PCI compliance. So we have some security risks, so we need to start moving forward with that. And so we'll do that, and we'll actually see a reduced cost that the city's paying for now. But then the discussion will be, do we pass that on in some way, shape, or form to the residents? So it'll be just something for your FYI. Always looking at ways to try to save money for the city. So right now, initially, it looks like we could potentially on the utility side for the payments, we pay probably between $150,000 to $180,000 a year. Underneath this option, we probably could reduce that about $70,000 a year. Yeah, and so that's part of one of the workshops that we had, looking for your ideas of what we can do to try to either generate additional revenue or reduce costs. So we're taking what you've told us and doing our investigation and looking forward to it. So again, I conclude with, if there's no other further questions, I conclude with, this is just a fantastic group, and I thanks for the dialogue, and this is great. Thank you.
City manager, anything? Nothing further. Any questions? Nothing? Nothing. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
It's down to two of us, so it's me. Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.